What is going on, everybody? And are we good? We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, and welcome back to the Wednesday. I had to think about what day it was for a minute there. Sorry if we had a little technical difficulties there. We had to switch links. I'm sure you'll find your way over in a second. The Wednesday edition of the NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. We are sponsored by BetMGM. I am back in New Jersey. It is 40 and rainy. It's miserable. Bringing in our co-host as usual, Slim Cliffy. How you doing today, Cliffy?
Not too bad, man. Kind of going through the same weather I think you're going through. It started snowing a little bit earlier today. That time of year, we're rounding into December, the holiday season. We're getting close to the official start of winter. So a lot more days like this. Quite a bit of news in the NHL. I guess we should probably start with Chris Letang. He missed Pittsburgh's last game. They played last night with an illness. And my first thought was maybe it was something like Alexander Barkov, because that guy's been out for a few games now with an illness. Seems like he's ready to come back soon, maybe just a bad flu or something like that. But the team said he actually suffered a stroke on Monday, and he's fine. Like they said, all the tests are clear. It doesn't seem like he's going to suffer too many or any negative effects immediately. But obviously with something like this, they have to do a lot more testing. They said they have to plan out, his short-term medical interventions or whatever they may need to do. And as Frank Saravalli, an national NHL reporter, pointed out, this is the second one of his NHL career. He had one back in 2014. They said it's not as serious as that one, so hopefully it's not too long before he's back on the ice. But obviously his health comes first. That is really pretty scary to see a guy, pro athlete, having two strokes by the age of 35. But it looks like he's going to be okay, so that's obviously the good news from all of this.
Yeah, and I think the Penguins' Twitter responding to someone saying he was born with like a hole in his heart that normally closes when you're born. I guess his didn't close, and so we wish him the best, speedy recovery. He apparently he talked to the locker room after it happened just to show everyone that he's okay, and luckily he understands his body and got out in front of it, which is a good thing, because sometimes we don't listen.
Yeah,
especially as we get older.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, you always wake up with a new kink in your neck or creak in your back or something hurts. Something different hurts every day once you roll into your 30s, and you always hope it's nothing too serious. It doesn't seem like as serious as a stroke is. Doesn't seem like it's going about as well as could be hoped for him. So just hope to see him back on the ice relatively soon. Best to him.
Yeah, and we had a pretty Interesting 9-gamer last night. Blake Wheeler hat trick. The flow chart's alive and well. We'll say that. We're gonna start making T-shirts, I think.
Yeah.
If you didn't have Winnipeg won, you weren't winning massive money. There were still ways to win money last night. Like I cashed with Sharks and Flames and an Eberle one-off. Like the Seattle Kings game was just absolute madness. The live over-under going into the third period was 16.5. So like that game with just no goalies. They just played on the empty net, it seemed like.
Yeah, that was a wild game. Like I didn't watch the finish, and I go through probably the same routine every morning. I try to not to check my phone or computer or anything when I wake up. It's breakfast and a walk and so on and so forth. So I didn't see that final. I walked to the gas station to go get a coffee, and the guy at the cash was like, "So that was quite the Los Angeles Seattle game last night." And I was thinking, yeah, well, I guess so. 17 goals scored. That is quite the performance. We had some pretty good efforts from people in our Discord. Hofbrau took down a first for 4K with a FanDuel score over 300, which is something you definitely don't see very often in NHL. So congrats to him. Oliver Atticus, he's been doing pretty well of late. Didn't bank last night, but finished top 3 in the big $15 over on DK. So good night to him. You and I got a DM through Twitter as well from user Shwayne Flanagan. Took down the mini max with a score over 250 on DraftKings. And he went with a standard 4-3-1. He had the Winnipeg top line. I guess it wasn't a 4-3-1, it was a 3-3, but he had the Winnipeg top line. He had the Los Angeles top line, Ekblad, Doughty, and Connor Hellebuck and net. Hellebuck put up a shutout with over 40 points. Real good game by him. So there were certain players you didn't necessarily need, but if you had them, you certainly were at the front of the line. I was like you. When I went to bed at about 1 a.m. Remember, it's a little bit later here. So the Winnipeg game was about an hour over with. Los Angeles, Seattle was only halfway through their game. And when I didn't have Winnipeg either. I certainly wasn't expecting to cash. But I still somehow managed to pull out a main cash last night. I will take that considering I had no Winnipeg and no pieces from the Seattle Los Angeles game. So as you like to say, green is good. And when you get it, especially when you're not supposed to, you just kind of take it and run. So congrats to all the winners last night. Let's hope we can kind of do the same here again tonight.
Yeah, I actually, for the first time on an NHL slate, I didn't log into DraftKings because the Wi-Fi on the plane wouldn't let me into gambling sites. So like when I got home, I just didn't look on DraftKings, and then I was at a diner at 1:30 in the morning eating burgers because I was hungry. And yeah, I didn't know. I was assuming I wasn't going to cash because I had no Winnipeg. I had Eberle, who had 4 assists, but Vinny Dunn did nothing. Elias Lindholm didn't do anything. Like, yeah, the Flames were okay. The Sharks were okay. And I was like, my goalie had an overtime loss. I was like, bombed. And then I woke up to the DraftKings notification. And I was confused. So then I logged in and it was nice. But like, yeah, you hope on those bigger slates there are multiple paths to, cash. And last night was one of them, which is always nice. Tonight we have a short slate that is pretty spicy. We have min price goalies going against each other. We have some serious firepower. And this morning in our premium Discord, we did have, a bunch of questions about building, single entry lineups, 3 max strategy, this and that. So I figured, we should cover that a little bit here. I mean, I know what I do. Maybe you have a different process. I'll go through what I do a little bit, and then I can send it over to you. Like, you were an MME player, like 20 max for most of the last season, but you noticed that your results in single entry 3 max return to better ROI. So you pretty much a single entry to 3 max player this year. I've always been a single entry player in NHL. It's kind of like a dying art, I would say. Like it's not for the faint of heart. So like if you're a 150 max player and you don't have a great night, you still sometimes can return like at least 50% of your entries, you know what I mean? So like you at least feel okay about yourself. Single entry, you kind of go through streaks where you just don't cash, or you like min cash like once or twice in like a 2-week span. Like you're relying on these big hits once or twice or 3 times, whatever it is. If you're on a hot streak, you rely on those big cashes to really, settle your season. And so what I like to do is, one, I try to take emotion out of it, which is always difficult. But one thing I like to do is identify my favorite line, regardless of ownership.
Yeah.
I don't care what the ownership is on it at the beginning, and I'll plug them into the lineup builder. I'll put it into DraftKings lineup. Maybe we'll pull up the lineup builder at some point today, but I'll put them in and I'll see what I can fit with and without them. If I end up on chalky builds, if I end up, not being able to get something I like, and I'll go from there. Like I'll go in order. Like I'll write my favorite stuff, my favorite lines down. I'll, plug in my favorite line regardless of ownership and start building around that, seeing what I can get to. And then just start narrowing it down from there. Like, yeah, later on, yeah, you can maybe start concerning yourself with ownership, but I wouldn't X out, especially in single entry, your favorite line just because they're chalk. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to get different. Getting duped is a lot less now with all these bonuses and one-offs and different builds and all that. So like, yeah, we preach that ownership does matter, but at the end of the day, there's plenty of ways, even if you're using a chalky lineup, to get different. So that's what I like to do. I like to write down my favorite lines. I'll start messing around with the lineup builder or DraftKings, you know what I mean? And just, see what I can fit with them, see what fits, if it's chalky, if it's contrarian, if I have to do a one-off, if I, need, what goalies do I need with them, this and that. And that's kind of how I break that down. And then if you're 3-maxing, depending on the slate, right? So on a slate like this, if I was 3-maxing, I would probably find a line that I like and use them in all 3 and then just build different stuff around that. Now, when you get to bigger slates, like 10 to 14 game slates, and there's just so many lines that you like, yeah, you can choose a different line and build around that in each of your entries. But on a short slate like this, I think going over the field on something that you really like and just mixing and matching with them, if it hits, you're gonna be in a really, really good spot. So that's my process in 1 to 3. I don't know if you do anything different, but I'll let you talk about what you do a little bit.
Yeah, I think the point you made about identifying your favorite line is probably the most important one, because listen, like defensemen are important, goalies are important, but if you're stacking 2 lines and one of them's a bust, you're not winning. It's just that simple. Like you will see people win tournaments with low-ish goalie scores, maybe like 10 points or 12 points or 14 points or something like that. And it's because they're, generally speaking, their forwards have a massive night. Like there are just more positions to succeed at, right? Like your 2 goalies and your defensemen are one. I would consider them one stack. Your other forward stack is another stack. Your other forward stack is another stack. Like one defenseman is not as important as 3 forwards. One goalie is not as important as 3 forwards. Like I was just looking. We'll just take last night, for example. I was looking through the $12 single entry last night, and there were 4 guys that hit 200 points, and 2 of them had Hellebuck and 2 of them didn't. And Hellebuck, he was a 40-plus point night on DraftKings. And the other, one of them was Tristan Jarry, who was under 20 points, and he still broke 200 and finished 3rd in the contest. Now, obviously, that's not first place. If he had Hellebuck, he might have actually won. So, there are times where it can push you out over the top. Don't get me wrong. But I think for how random goaltending can be, people kind of worry about it too much. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, right? Like when you're playing single entry and you have one goalie, it's kind of like in fantasy baseball with your relief pitcher, right? Like he's going in and you gotta hope that he just doesn't get blown up. And if he doesn't get blown up and can go and get you the save, you're probably just happy with whatever else happens, right? It's, when he gets blown up that it really hurts. So identifying your favorite forward line is probably the best way to go. Now, to do that, there are a number of ways to do that. I'll just start by pulling up our lineup builder, and I'll show people how to actually get to it on the site because people have asked me about that. You just highlight the tools section, go down to lineup builder, and click NHL. So that'll bring up your lineup builder. It automatically defaults to FanDuel. We're going to click over to DraftKings because that's where most people tend to play. And it brings up everything we have on the site. So you'll have, the player name, position, their salary, their ownership percentage, what their projection is, and what the stack projection is. And the stack projection is something I kind of want to highlight a little bit.
I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. And you get all that if you're a premium member. If you are not a member to the site, you just get the name, the salary,
and the line they're on. Yeah.
And the line they're on. Yeah.
Yeah. All those extra projections like ownership and individual player projection and stack projection. Yes, that all comes with a premium subscription. That's why we recommend you guys sign up to Stokastic.com. But that's one thing that I do to kind of help sort my lines. So now I start looking through the lines a little bit. Okay, you have San Jose 1 at about 31. Obviously, Toronto 1 is going to be at the top because any line with Austin Matthews on it is going to be at or near the top 4 projections because he just projects so well on every single slate. You have about 31.5 for Ottawa, 32.5 for the Rangers. Now 36.5 for Buffalo. That's where, things can kind of get a little bit spicy because other than Edmonton, and obviously Edmonton's going to be massive, and Toronto's going to be massive because of Matthews. That Buffalo top line is number 3 by overall stack projection. So I look at that and I think, okay, they're projecting 36.6 points. That's not that far off from Toronto's 40.3. It's less than 10% underneath what that line is stacked at. And then I bring it over to our NHL top stacks and look to see, where they might rank by leverage and all that. So, Buffalo's top line coming in with pretty good leverage, 9%, 13% ownership. It is because everybody's going to be playing Toronto. We're expecting about 20% ownership on them. So, yes, obviously the Edmonton top line is in a really great spot, and there are lines you can put with them. The Toronto top line, not in a bad spot, pretty high total. You can put them in there as well. But now I'm looking at the Buffalo top line because not only do they have a high projection, but the rest of their lines are fairly low. Like their other 2 lines are under 20 points projection that you can see in the red numbers here. So if the Buffalo Sabres do put up a bunch of goals, we are expecting them to come more or less from the top line. It's kind of the same in Edmonton, obviously, with Draisaitl and McDavid both skating on the top line together. Zach Hyman has been moved there both of the last 2 games. We'll talk about that game a little bit later. But they project well. They're coming in with really good ownership. It's not a bad matchup. So that would be, if I'm not playing Toronto, which will be very popular. If I'm not playing Edmonton, which will also be very popular, it's like, what else is on this slate here? Buffalo 1 would be one of the lines that I would circle. And I would kind of do that, for every line, every team, see what sticks out at different price points. And that's how I would go about picking my main stack is you look for what's going to be obviously going to be played tonight. Austin Matthews' line is obviously going to be played. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they're obviously going to be played. It's not like people are avoiding Buffalo. They might be in the low to mid teens for ownership, but that's going to be a lot less than what the other 2 come in with. So that would be one of the lines that I would focus on. I would throw them in the lineup builder, and then I continue from there. And then, I go line by line, which lines do I like? Does the Chicago second line fit in well? Does the Ottawa second line fit in well? And that's when I start looking for my secondary stacks. I'll just click in the Ottawa second line just to kind of make things simple. Obviously, we're going to take one of the $6,500 goalies. We'll throw And I would say you don't have to correlate your goalies, but I just would. So now you have 4150 remaining for your two defensemen, and then you go through the projections to look for what defensemen are projecting well, which ones aren't going to have a lot of ownership and so on and so forth. So, I'll just click in our boy Artem Zub real quick, and I'll throw in who's sitting around $5,000 here. I'll throw in Mo Cedar just for fun. So projecting 93 points. That's not bad. I usually try to get point projections up around 100 when I'm doing this through the lineup builder. But that was just going through it quickly just to show people kind of what we do. I agree with you. The most important point is to highlight which line you're going to build around. Is it going to be Toronto 1? Is it going to be Edmonton 1? Is it going to be Buffalo 1? Is it going to be Detroit 1? Oh, you pick one of those lines, and then you can see what fits in with that, and then what goalies can fit with that, and then which defenseman might correlate or which defenseman might project well because they've moved up the lineup or they're getting more minutes, so on and so forth. That's kind of how I go. It's like your main stack is more important. Your secondary stack is less important. Your goalie after that and your defenseman after that. It's just like a step-by-step process that I go through every day to see what I really like. Now, obviously, there are other inputs we use, like you and I talk about line matching a lot. Our buddy that we subscribe to on Twitter at line matching. Again, it's not through Stokastic, it's through somebody else, but we look at line matching. You obviously look at recent trends, like, maybe a while ago, Austin Matthews was projecting real well, but he was playing like 16 minutes a night. And it's because projections factor in historical performance and historical ice time, not necessarily what they've been doing the last 2 or 3 games. So, maybe Matthews was projecting very well, but he was only skating 16 minutes. So you can kind of skip over that. Those are just kind of the other things that we do. But more than anything, I think the first point you made is the most salient one here, is to really nail down the primary stack you're going to use and then just go step by step from there. It's a process that once you do it a few times, you just get the hang of it, and you can do it in like 5 minutes if you're really in a rush. The more time you have to research, the better, but you can do it quickly once you have a step-by-step process that you stick to. And that's what I would suggest to people playing single entries. Look for the main stack that you're going to build around, and then take it from there.
Yeah, and I think a couple important points. One, about the lineup builder, it lets you build lineups without having to enter anything on these sites like DraftKings or FanDuel. You can see what fits without like creating like 400 lineups in DraftKings, and you're just like, oh, I don't know, now I don't know which one to play. So like that's important. You can mark them down, you can write them down. And second thing, in single entry 3 max, and I've been guilty of this in seasons past, and I've gotten away from it this year, and I've seen some pretty good results. Is like last year I was forcing in correlation with my D-men to my stacks. So to say I was going like 3-3-2, I would have 3 from one, and then I'd have 2 and a defenseman from another, then the one-off defenseman that correlates with my single bullet. But like I think forcing in a defender from the same team just because he plays from the same team is just, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. So I think like when you get down to the nitty gritty there, like the last lineup spot, like last night, I had San Jose, I had Calgary 1 full line stack. It was my favorite line, right? And then I put Hurdle and Meyer in there, and then I put Eberle. And I decided to pair Eberle with Vinny Dunn because they're on the power play together. They, Dunn plays a ton of minutes and he's fairly priced. That left me with 4,300 left. So instead of forcing in a Sharks defender to make a 3-3-2 that I didn't like, I took the highest projected defenseman left that I liked in that spot instead of forcing correlation. And I ended up on Cam Fowler. He didn't have the best night, but he played 28 minutes at 4,300. And, instead of like forcing in, I don't know, like Jason Megna and like changing my goalie just to get correlation, it just doesn't make sense sometimes. So when you get down to those final spots, I think, forcing in correlation isn't the best idea. If you just happen to get there and it fits and you like it, then yeah, sure, go for it. But like, I'm not going to force in a guy just because they're on the same team. They might not even see the ice time together. You know what I mean? I'm going to look for my final spots for some highly projected guys.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty good point about just forcing correlation kind of for no reason. And the final point that I'll make is somebody just asked in the chat about doing pairs of players rather than 3-man stacks. And I don't have any real problem playing pairs in large field tournaments. Like if you're playing, what's the quarter arcade, like 5,500 people or 6,000 people or something like that. Like if you're doing that, I don't mind pairs of players because you need more to go right to finish first place. It didn't happen last night with the guy that sent us that screenshot. I mean, he was in the mini max and still hit it with a 3-3. But the point of 3-man stacking is to get the highest scoring player on a slate in your stack. It's not that necessarily everybody's going to put up 30 DK points. It's that, maybe one guy hits 40, another guy's at about 25, and the other guy's at about 10. So, the whole stack gives you 75 points. You can do pairs. Sometimes you'll just miss out on the wrong guy. Like last night, for example, Calgary 2. If you took pairs of Calgary 2, I'd have to think you were going to include Nazem Kadri in that build. He had 0 points. He had 3 shots on goal, while I think Andrew Mangiapane had a goal and assist, and Dylan Dubé had a 3-point night. That's just kind of the way it goes. If you're leaving a guy off a stack. Now, there are times I leave a guy off a stack, like you did last night, putting in Jordan Eberle as the one-off. I would say don't overcomplicate things unless you're playing in a huge field. Like if you're playing, I play the $20 3 max most nights. If you're playing the $20 3 max with 400 people or 500 people or whatever it is, you don't need a perfect lineup to finish first place. It's just when you get to those fields of like 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 people that you need to be a little bit more perfect with your lineup. So that would be the last thing that I'll have to say here about lineup construction.
Yeah, and if you're playing single entry 3 max, I still throw my lineups into the 15 and like the 150 max, but I don't build like I'm trying to win.
Yeah,
the $15. If I happen to get up there, I get up there. I'm looking to build a good lineup that's going to place really well in single entry and 3 max contests. So yeah, I would still throw it in the 15 or the 4 or whatever the 150 max that you're comfortable with your bankroll playing. I wouldn't avoid those contests, but I wouldn't, go crazy building a unique build to try to get to the top of that with one lineup. I think you just need to worry about your process, build the best lineups you can, and worry about placing highly in the 3 max single entry contests. And then, wherever it finishes in the 150 max, it does. Like you just, I put my lineups in there just out of FOMO, like what happens if I build the absolute stone nuts,
Yeah.
and I'm in there. Like I just put it in there just for a lottery ticket. But yeah. So we hopefully that covered it. Luckily we had a 4-game slate today and we had to talk about that. We had time to talk about this, and maybe going forward on shorter slates we'll address other topics. But if you still have questions and you're a premium member, ask us in Discord. Like we weren't planning on doing this today. They asked us in Discord. I said, we have time. This is a good topic, since a lot of our guys play single entry 3 max, and both of us do it. We can MME. We just have had better results in the 1 to 3 max. But yeah, if you have topics that you want us to discuss on short slates, then shoot us a message in Discord. We are very open to talking about these things. But we do have a 4-game slate, which we can get through in a half an hour. That's no worries. I might hit a tangent or two because I've had so much caffeine, I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, let's get into the slate. But before you do, give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all of our content is available in podcast form on the platform of your choice. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. Hitting, subscribing, hitting that like, leaving a review helps us out so much. It helps, you guys. We can give you this content for free. We love doing that. So yeah, help us out, like and subscribe, leave a comment, 5-star review for the podcast, and we can do this more often. First game of the night. I feel like Chris Kattan and what's that movie?
I don't watch Chris Kattan movies. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll remember.
It was Night at the Roxbury.
No, it wasn't Night of the Roxbury. It was I don't know. Anyway, San Jose Sharks 2.5 total. Heading into Toronto, the Maple Leafs have a 3.9 total. Aaron Dell, Ilya Samsonov confirmed. Both these goalies are min price on DraftKings on FanDuel. Ilya Samsonov is min price and Aaron Dell is 6,800. Now the Leafs are minus 300 or even higher since the last time I checked. So it was not Undercover Brother either. I'll get there. Don't worry. I'll look it up in a second. Samsonov, min price, minus 300 favorite. He's going to be an overwhelmingly chalk goalie tonight, which is going to depress the Sharks ownership. They also have the lowest total on the slate and are the biggest underdog. And they played last night. So yeah, the Leafs are obviously going to be heavily owned here. The one thing, with Edmonton being on the slate that you're going to have to ask yourself here is Edmonton is an unbelievable power play spot. And somehow, despite the goalies, the Sharks penalty kill has been very, very good. Now, Aaron Dell, I believe this is his, Corky Romano. Thank you, Haas. It is Corky Romano. Yeah, when the police dog blows open the bag of Coke on his face and he's just like, whoa, talking like 10 miles a minute. But anyway, Aaron Dell, I believe this is his first start in the NHL this year. He might not even have been in the NHL last year. So Edmonton is an unbelievable power play spot. The Leafs aren't, but this is like the Sharks' fourth goalie here. Right now, ownership on Edmonton and Toronto is about the same. I'm kind of still debating what I want to do here, so I wanted to get your thoughts on what you're doing with the Leafs.
Yeah. Here's my thing on the Toronto top line. Now, we just talked about how they're probably going to be fairly highly owned tonight. We have the Toronto top line on DraftKings per our top stacks tool coming in at about 25% ownership. That's a lot of ownership. What I want to discuss is Austin Matthews playing with William Nylander. Now, that's something that you and I have talked about quite a bit since they've been put together. They've been together for I want to say 9 or 10 games now. The quality that they generate is not the same as with Mitch Marner. And to put a finer point on that, Cam Sharon, he's a hockey analyst. He's actually the guy that got me interested in advanced stats a decade ago. He ended up working with the Toronto Maple Leafs as a stats video guy for 6 years or 7 years. Not with the team anymore, so he's doing more independent research. Anyways, he had an article for The Athletic talking about the differences between Matthews playing with Marner and Matthews playing with Nylander. And I think something that Marner does not get enough credit for is being disruptive in the offensive zone. It's why he's such a good penalty killer, is that he can be really disruptive, pressuring the puck carrier and forcing turnovers. And if you can force turnovers in the offensive zone, you can really create good scoring chances because obviously the defensive positioning isn't there. Players aren't where they're supposed to be. You can kind of find those gaps and holes in the defense and so on and so forth. And that's not something that William Nylander is really great at. That's creating fewer turnovers in the offensive zone to create kind of those, bang, bang plays off the rush or off the turnover. Sorry. And Matthews generates a lot fewer shots from the slot, which is obviously one of the prime scoring areas in the offensive zone. This is something that Cam tracked himself, watching game after game after game, obviously being with the Leafs for so long and now being out doing analysis on his own. So that's not to say that they're going to be a bad line or anything like that. But the thing is we're talking about a line that's supposed to be amongst the elite scoring in the NHL. And they just haven't really been that great in their time together. 3 expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 is good. In fact, it's really good for most every line in the league.
It's not really good for an Austin Matthews line. They are scoring at a clip of 3.8 goals per 60 minutes, which again is good. It's really good. It's not anywhere near what Matthews, Marner, and Bunting did last year. Now, I know they had a tough start to the season, but it was like 8 or 9 games of a low shooting percentage. A bad couple weeks shooting. That just, that happens to every player. I just have a little bit of concern that they're going to be going into that San Jose 1 matchup, and I know it's a back-to-back, but Meier, Hurdle, and LeBanc have been really, really good defensively, only 2.1 expected goals against in their minutes together. So I think the only reason I wouldn't want to fade Toronto here tonight is because of Aaron Dell. If you look at his career, his goals saved above expected, which is one of the goalie measures that we use, is not very good, like worse than Mikko Koskinen, who's out of the NHL now. You know what I mean? Since the start of his career, he's in that like Thomas Greiss, Elvis Merzlikins range. Again, just like not very good. He's not a good goalie, but the Sharks have an excellent penalty kill. San Jose has the lowest shots against per 60 minutes on the penalty kill in the month of November. It's absolutely crazy how good they are on the penalty kill. And Toronto has been really relying on the power play for a lot of their fantasy production. Now, because of Aaron Dell, it makes me feel nervous fading Toronto on a 4-game slate. But I think between how good the Sharks penalty kill is, between how good the San Jose top line has been defensively, I think and between Matthews and Nylander not creating nearly the quality scoring chances that Matthews and Marner were, I think there are reasons to avoid Toronto 1 here tonight. I don't think I'm going to be playing them in single entry. You guys make your own decisions. Toronto 2, I would have a little bit more interest in. Marner's obviously been on a huge tear, 17 straight games with a point. He's finally started scoring as his shooting percentage has turned around. If the Leafs get there on the power play, it's probably going to be through John Tavares. He's still generating a lot of very good quality looks with the man advantage. So, I'd probably lean more to Toronto too, but they're coming in very heavily owned as well. So I have no problem playing Toronto too. I think it's a softer matchup going up against the Couture line. Obviously, Aaron Dell in net is not going to help. Like, I'm not going to begrudge anybody playing Toronto entirely, but I just think there are, considering how well the San Jose top line is playing, considering just how elite the penalty kill has been basically all year, but especially over the last month, I think there are reasons to stay away from Toronto 1. On the San Jose side, it's kind of the same problem because the Toronto PK penalty kill is pretty good, not elite, but pretty good. San Jose doesn't really draw a lot of power plays either, which is a big problem. So they have to get a lot done at 5-on-5. The Toronto top line's been pretty good defensively, good defensively, not great. The second line's been good defensively, not great. I know they have a lot of injuries on the blue line. I think I would be more inclined to go back to San Jose here, just for leverage purposes. Ilya Samsonov, it's his first game off injury. We just saw Jake Ottinger get blown up was it last week when he returned from injury? So it definitely can happen. I would probably be more inclined to go on the San Jose side, but honestly, I think this might end up being a little bit of a lower scoring game. So not too interested in stacking anything in single entry here.
Yeah, if the Oilers weren't on this slate, it would be a much different question. But the power play spot that the Oilers are in, I don't want to say it makes it an easy choice, but with everything being equal and ownership coming in similar projected, I'm probably just going to go to Edmonton if I end up playing the Oilers over Toronto here. Aaron Dell is the issue here, right? So power play stacking against a good PK but an awful goalie seems like a good idea. But the Sharks PK is so good is because when they do give up shots, they're not very dangerous. So it's a question what do you want to do? Short slate, yeah. I think, one lineup, you're going to have a question. You're going to have to answer that question for yourself. The more lineups you get to, obviously, the easier it is to get in Leafs here. I do agree the Sharks side, if there's ever going to be a night to use a back-to-back team on the road on a short slate with the lowest total with the biggest underdog. It's with Ilya Samsonov in net, who's going to be close to 50%, maybe even more than 50% owned.
Yeah.
Sharks top line, not getting much ownership. Didn't have the best game yesterday, but Timo Meyer's been a shooting machine.
I mean, Hurdle still scored twice.
Yeah.
It's just that, other lines went absolutely bananas across the slate elsewhere.
Yeah. It's like if there's ever a time to go to the Sharks here, 2.5 for back-to-back on the road for a Sharks team is actually a pretty fair total just because, their depth is a little bit wonky. So, it's probably going to be coming from the top 6 or the power play. So I don't mind getting to some Sharks here. So, yeah, this game is a mess, but it's on the slate. So there you go. Let's move to the blue line here. Carlson at 8,500. That's a tough pill to swallow. Like last night, he was 8,700. Also a tough pill to swallow. I don't know. I'd much rather play the other expensive guys, not on defense. Matthews is only 200 more, and I don't know. I just don't think I'll get personally to any Carlson. If you're MMEing, obviously you'll have some, but in 1 to 3, I just don't think I'll have Carlson. On the Leaf side, Sandin running that top power play at 2,600, I think is fine. It's not the best power play matchup, but 2,600, if they get a bunch of power plays, chances are, and they convert, chances are he might be on the score sheet there. Mark Giordano, 3,800 is, the main guy I'm looking at. Also, don't mind Liljegren at 2,800.
Yeah, I think Giordano's probably the best defense play in this game. His projection's still really high, obviously, for the minutes that he plays and all that. So I do like Giordano. I don't think you necessarily have to run back to Rasmus Sandin, especially because we talked about it's a pretty bad power play spot for the Leafs. And I was actually looking at Toronto's numbers without Morgan Riley. Their shot attempts are down, or their shot attempts are about 20% higher with Riley on the blue line than any other defenseman. So bad PK spot, no Riley. I think you're fine to stay away from Sandin. Timothy Liljegren's actually the guy I would probably go to. He was up over 21 minutes again last game. I think he's the cheap guy I would use on the Toronto side. The other guy I'll mention is Matt Benning for San Jose. I think he was up 21 minutes last night in Montreal. He's super cheap on DK. If Toronto starts firing the puck, he can definitely get the block bonus for you on DraftKings. So don't mind Benning on DK.
Yep. And Samsonov is an obvious choice. He's min priced. Leafs are minus 300. Any interest in Aaron?
No, I just don't. I mean, listen, any goalie can win on any given night. If you absolutely need to use them because you're playing, let's say you're playing some Sharks and maybe you're getting some Edmonton guys in there, you need some salary saved. It's possible, but I think there are cheap goalies you can use elsewhere on the slate instead.
As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM, and we have a no-brainer offer for you. Bet $10 and you win $200 in free bets if any team scores a goal during the World Cup. Click the link in the description below, or it's the pinned comment to sign up. The bet must be on a pregame money line. If you don't have a BetMGM account, this is for you. You sign up, you deposit $10, you bet it on a pregame money line, and you win $200 in free bets. So I've been told through our analytics that we've had a bunch of people sign up but not deposit. In order to get the $200 in free bets, you have to deposit at least $10 and bet it on a pregame money line World Cup game. So if you made your account, you might as well just deposit $10 and get the $200 in free bets. Bet that, win. Go from there. This offer is available in all states except New York, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, and Ontario. This offer ends Sunday. So if you're ever thinking about it, or you've already created a BetMGM account and haven't deposit the $10, win $200 in free bets. We move on. New York Rangers, 3.3 total. Heading into Ottawa, the Senators have a 3.1 total. Yaroslav Halak is probable for the Rangers. Cam Talbot confirmed for the Senators. Not much ownership here on the Senators. They are expensive. but that might be okay. Rangers goaltending hasn't been great recently. Obviously, Igor is still preferred, but Halak and net, not much ownership on the Senators. Kind of like them here. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I kind of like both sides of this game. One thing I like to look at is pace. Now, I define pace by shot attempts for plus shot attempts against per 60 minutes, just to see who's playing at a high pace. Like St. Louis always plays at a very low pace, which is why, racking up shots on goal, shot blocks in games with St. Louis can be tough. Ottawa first in November in pace in the entire league, even ahead of Florida, which means the most shot attempts happen in whenever Ottawa is playing. Now, a lot of it is shot attempts for, because they are a pretty good offensive team, but they have been giving it up defensively as well. I want to start on the Rangers side here because they have been struggling, I guess, a little bit in scoring. Not really been playing they've been playing fine, I think, but they just been having a real tough time scoring. They're going into Ottawa tonight, and Ottawa, like I said, has been playing to a really high pace so far. Well, not so far this season, basically all season. Not really that great by goals against, like pretty much right in line with Los Angeles. We just saw what happened with Los Angeles, and Cal Peterson got waived while we were on the air, so I guess you could kind of see that coming. But Ottawa has had trouble keeping the puck out of their own net. Now, the problem is that the Ottawa lines themselves actually haven't been that bad defensively. Certainly not in the iterations that they're using, like Kachuk, Stützle, and Giroux. 105 minutes together, 2.2 expected goals against. Like, that's really good. We were just talking about San Jose's top line, kind of in the same range. Ottawa second line, 2.1 expected goals against. Again, pretty good defensively. Here's the problem. Is Ottawa typically uses their third line, not typically, but often uses the third line in shutdown matchups, and that line has not been as good. Mott and Joseph, fine, but really play to a high pace. Brassard's certainly not going to help in that regard, and that's the matchup that Kreider, Zibanejad, and BC are going to get. So I think it's a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup for the Rangers, and they do have a 3.3 total, higher than Ottawa, higher than Buffalo in the next game as well. So, Kreider, Zibanejad, and BC have been playing very, very well together. 3.9 expected goals generated in their time together. Kreider, Zibanejad play 21 minutes a night. I think this isn't a bad spot for that Rangers top line. I just don't think I would go to anything else on the Rangers. Like, I think Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Kravtsov can be a good line. I just want to see Kravtsov kind of prove that he can belong in the NHL. And the way Ottawa runs their lines, they're going to be facing the top six quite a bit. So I think it's a little bit of a tough matchup for them. I do like the Rangers top line in this game. I'm probably not going to get to the second or third lines after that. On the Ottawa side, Ottawa is going to be going into the Rangers second and third lines. That Ottawa top line, of Kachuk, Stützle, and Giroux. And they've been really good offensively, 3.8 goals per 60 minutes in their time together this season, which is just as good as the Toronto top line, I might add. And they'll be seeing the second and third line from the Rangers. The second line from the Rangers, 3.1 or 3.5 expected goals against, with Panarin and Hedl together over the last couple seasons. They've been really porous defensively, being bailed out by Shesterkin, but Shesterkin's not starting tonight. And Trocheck and Lafreniere have not been good together either. 3.0 expected goals against in their minutes together this season. 3.1 actual goals against. Those Rangers second and third lines don't look very good defensively to me. And I think the Ottawa top line can kind of feast on that. And the Ottawa top line has been really good on the power play as well. Now, Giroux's on the second power play unit, and that's a little bit of a problem. But I think it's an opportunity to make a power play stack if you want to save some money. Take off Giroux, put on Batherson, something like that. The Ottawa top power play unit, 12 goals per 60 minutes this season. That's really, really good. That's about in Toronto ones, the Toronto power plays range as well. I think the Ottawa top line is definitely what I like most in this game. They're not coming in with much ownership. We're looking at 4 to 6% in our top stacks tool, about 5.5% overall. We have them at 19% to be a top 2 stack. Like, I think this Ottawa top line, considering upside, considering ownership, no Shesterkin in net, I think this Ottawa top line is probably my favorite non-Edmonton line on this entire slate.
Yeah, if you have the huevos to fade, the big boys tonight, because Ottawa 1 on DraftKings is over $20,000, it would be Ottawa 1 for me. If I had the stones to outright fade Matthews and McDavid, and you know what, I might haven't gotten there yet. Panarin, them facing Panarin, Hedel, Kako, that line might be good offensively, but man, they're not going to be very good defensively. Lafreniere, Trocheck, Kravtsov plays 7 minutes and gets benched for a week, and maybe he shows he belongs, but very good matchups here. Very good, the Rangers penalty kill hasn't been great. They've gotten bailed out, last season for sure by Igor. They haven't been too great in goaltending on the penalty kill. Halak is a big downgrade from Igor. I don't know. Ottawa 1 is setting up for a low-owned smash tonight, and not many people are going to have them because of Matthews and McDavid. I think, if you're MMEing, if I was making 150 tonight, I'd be over the field on Ottawa 1. We'll just put it that way. On the Rangers side, I agree with you. Rangers 1 for me. I wanted to get to some Rangers 2, but at their ownership, I'm just going to go to Rangers 1. You know what I mean? If you want to leave off VC and add in Panarin, that's fine. But Mika and Kreider at 15% or Hedel and Panarin at 14%, I'm going to go to Kreider and Zibanejad. Obviously, if you need, salary savings, it's fine. But preferred is Rangers top line. Let's move to the blue line here. Adam Fox down under 6K. I like him for the power play. Jacob Trouba at 5,100 is, the periffs guy. Really about it. You can take a stab on Keandre Miller if you want. On the Ottawa side, Chabot under 5K here. Should be pretty popular. I also like my son Artem Zub at 3,200. I think, low 3s to 2s is where you can Zub it up, and that is tonight.
Yeah, I'll just mention our projections have Adam Fox just flat out for more points than Erik Karlsson, and he's over $2,000 cheaper on DraftKings. There's a little bit of a mispricing going on there, but yeah, I like Fox. Trouba's price still very good as well. Chabot, I think, is his cheapest that he's been all season. I kind of get it, but that's one of those ways where, if you're worried about how expensive the Ottawa top line is, like I said, you can take out Giroux and put in Batherson, or you can do a 2-man Stützle and Tkachuk and put Chabot on the blue line and save money that way as well. There are ways to make it a little bit cheaper. Probably liking the Zub, Artem Zub in this spot, playing a lot of minutes, 3,200. I think that's just fine as well. Probably not going to dip down into the Rangers cheap guys, because I think I'd be playing Zub or Backstrom if I needed a cheap defenseman from this game. Or not Backstrom, Brandstrom.
I knew what you meant. And don't worry, guys. We're going to spill over. The next show isn't until 3:30, so we can go a little bit over here to get these last 2 games in. So stick with us. Of course, on a 4-game slate, we're coming over, but that's just classic us. Lineup Generator is the perfect tool for building winning lineups for DFS content. Now, it's a little bit different than the Lineup Builder. The Lineup Generator is for NFL and NBA. They do have NHL in the works. But what it is, it's a cutting-edge algorithm that analyzes player data and trends to help you make the best choices for your lineup. It has an easy-to-use interface. You can have your lineups built in seconds. No more spending hours researching players, although I would advise still doing your homework. Get an edge on your opponents by using Lineup Generator's powerful contest simulations. It saves you time and energy. So what else you can do? You can choose between a balanced build, a highly projected build, contrarian builds. You also have the ability to save up to 20 lineups. If you don't like the lineup that pops up, you can discard it. Once you saved all your lineups, it shows you all your player exposures, and you can adjust from there. And in NFL, it lets you stack, so you can stack a quarterback with a wide receiver. You can do it with 2 wide receivers. You can run it back with a player from the other team. So it is an awesome, awesome feature. You should check it out. It's included when you sign up for any of our DFS packages, obviously NFL or NBA. Third game of the night. Buffalo Sabres, 3.1 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 3.5 total. Craig Anderson probable. Alex Nedeljkovic confirmed. Wings changed up their lines here. It's top lines now: Dominic Kubalik, Dylan Larkin, Lucas Raymond. Second line is Tyler Bertuzzi, Michael Rasmussen, and David Perron. That moves Andrew Kopp down to the third line center with Adam Ernie and Oscar Sundqvist. Status quo for the Sabres. I like Nedeljkovic. I think he's a bit of a downgrade from Husso, though. 6.5 total here. Not a lot of ownership again. I think both sides are in play for me. I think I'm leaning to one side. Want to see which side you're looking at.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to mention is that Buffalo is not a very good defensive team. I think with how good of a season Rasmus Dahlin is having and how good the top line has been, I think it's kind of hiding the issues throughout the lineup. The Buffalo top line, 3.7 expected goals against per 60 minutes this year. The Buffalo second line, 2.9 expected goals against per 60 minutes this year. The Buffalo third line, 3 expected goals against per 60 minutes with Middlestat and Olofsson on the ice. I guess there's a question whether that's the Buffalo third line anymore because they got benched in their last game for the final 10 minutes plus overtime. So whether they're still the third line is a question. But those are all lines, all anywhere from below average to well below average defensively so far this season. So it's a pretty decent matchup for Detroit. And I think that's why you're seeing a 3.5 total, which is behind only Toronto and Edmonton on this slate, which that's wild, man. One reason is because they have 3 lines that can score. Again, if you go to our lineup builder, if you're a premium subscriber, all their top 3 lines are all projected for at least 20 DK points, which is the only team to have that here tonight. Not even Toronto has that. Not even the New York Rangers have that with their more balanced lineup combinations. Every single top 3 or the top 3 Detroit lines are projected for 20 plus, but none of them are projected for 30. So they're expecting goals here, but they might be spread out. With all that said, there are good matchups to take advantage of here. The problem with me with the Red Wings top line is that I really, really like the price on Lucas Raymond of 3,900, but he has not been very good this year. So far this season, Raymond's shot rate is down from last year, and it wasn't even that high to begin with. He's sitting at under 2 shots per game on the season. The only reason he's actually scoring goals is because he's shooting 16%, which I think he might be able to because he's talented, but he's not only is he not shooting, but he's also not driving the play. And Kubalik is not a guy that drives the play super well either. So I'm wondering if that Detroit top line doesn't struggle at 5-on-5 here, because listen, I think Lucas Raymond is a very talented player. I just think he's still 19 years old, maybe just turned 20. He's still kind of learning how to be effective night in and night out in the NHL and do something more than shoot. I think it's kind of that Oliver Wahlstrom problem over with the Islanders. So I don't have a huge problem playing the Detroit top line, especially where they're not coming in with all that much ownership. They are, relatively cheap because of Raymond. But I kind of dig that Detroit second line with Michael Rasmussen there. Now, they are coming in very over-owned. And you only get one guy on the top power play unit with David Perron because Bertuzzi had been playing power play 2 of late. That's a bit of an issue as well. But, pardon me. But They're going to be getting some pretty good matchups on the other side. Like that Cousins, Peterka, Quinn line has been very good offensively, but also pretty porous defensively. They might see a little bit of that middle stat line, which has also been very bad. I don't mind Bertuzzi, Rasmussen, and Perron. It's something where this is one of the cases where I probably make a two-man in Bertuzzi and Perron or something like that, because I think those are the guys that will get the touches on the puck when they're in the offensive zone rather than Rasmussen. But I don't mind that Detroit second line. I think you can even drop down to the third line. I know Andrew Kopp has had a bad start to the season, but his impacts have started to improve a little bit. He's at least been passable offensively. It's just defensively that has been the huge problem. But playing on the third line, that won't be an issue. So I think if you need like a cheap two-man, I think you can do something like, Kopp and Ernie or Kopp and Sunkfist, especially where Sunkfist is on the top power play unit for Detroit. On the Buffalo side, it'd be just the top two lines that I have the most interest in, because I'm worried about ice time for that Middlestat Olofsson line, and I don't think I'm getting all the way down to Tyson Jost and Zemgus Girgensons, even on a 4-gamer. So that Buffalo second line has looked really, really good in a small sample. They are probably going to see a fair bit of that Detroit second line, which, I think they'll be good offensively, but I think there are definite questions defensively as well. So I don't mind Buffalo 2 here as one of those secondary stacks that you can use to fit in the more expensive guys. Again, I think it would be more two-manning. So, two-man Cousins and Quinn, Cousins and Peterka. I think you can even do Peterka and Quinn. I think it'd be more two-manning there, so I can pay up for the Edmonton Oilers or something like that. But I don't mind Detroit or that Buffalo second line. So I kind of like both second lines as cheap options for people who are taking duos, two-man rather than full-line stacks. Buffalo 1's certainly in play at a reasonable price. The problem here is that the Detroit penalty kill has typically been pretty good this year. Still not sliding a little bit, but still good. Detroit doesn't really give up a lot of power play opportunities, only 3 per game. That's well below league average. So I think Buffalo 1 is fine here, but I'm going to be honest. I think I'd rather just pay a little bit more and play the Ottawa top line. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think I like the cheaper options a little bit better than the expensive guys here.
Yeah. I mean, going to Buffalo 1 here is fine. Like, don't get me wrong. They're 19 and change. Like, it's kind of hard to fit with Edmonton or pieces of Toronto, stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'd rather go to the Ottawa top line or Ottawa power play stack, or, but I think, Buffalo 1's perfectly fine here. I do like the Detroit side as well. I do share the same concerns with Raymond. I think you can power play stack, like leave off Raymond, add in Perron. Craig Anderson or Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen doesn't really scare me. The matchups don't really scare me. So, yeah, I have interest in both sides of this game. On the blue line, I think Rasmus Dahlin at 7,600 is fine. I think, I don't know, the pay up options. I almost would rather just play Fox or Chabot there for way less. So, I don't know if you need the Carlsons and the Dahlins tonight. So maybe it brings down their ownership and it ends up ipso facto, whatever calculations you're doing, could end up being a very good GPP play. On the other side, Moritz Seider at 5K is nice as well. Henry Jokiharju, 2,900, I think is fine. Philip Hronik in that mid-range is okay. And Jake, we'll just, contractual obligation, Jake Wallman, shout out.
Yeah, obviously Jake Wallman shout out. He's actually put up 12 shots in 6 games despite playing 15 minutes a game. So he's getting involved offensively. I definitely don't mind Wallman as one of those cheap blue liners. On the other side, it would be probably Jokiharju for the sub 3K guys. Still getting reasonable minutes. Not going to say a whole lot more about the expensive guys. I think you really kind of nailed it.
Don't forget to click the link below and sign up for BetMGM. Deposit 10, win 200. It's that simple. Not only do you need to make the account, deposit the 10. Bet it on the pregame money line in the World Cup game. Get 200 in free bets. It really is that simple. There are no strings attached. Last game of the night, Edmonton Oilers, 3.7 total heading into Chicago. Blackhawks have a 2.7 total. Stewie Skinner, Arvid Soderblom confirmed. Looks like Zach Hyman, like he wasn't on there the last 2 games, but he ended up moving up in both those games to replace Puljujarvi. So on the lineup builder, I don't know if there's anything definitive in skates, but he's up there.
They had a skate while we were on, and they said Hyman's going to be on the top line. So there's your 23K plus line.
Gravy. Yeah, so Hyman's up there. Second line is now Matthias Janmark, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jesse Puljujarvi. Status quo for the Hawks. With the Edmonton top line fully correlated on the power play, I have no interest in the second, third, or fourth lines. If you want to add in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and go about your day, yippee-ki-yay. Blackhawks, what do you do here? Oilers haven't been great defensively. Like Anthony Taves, Kane, I guess is fine. But like with Taves, they're probably going to see a fair bit of McDavid, and that's where you may. So like if you want to go to like Domi, Taylor, Radish, I don't mind it for the power play there if you're looking to fit in like Toronto guys or Ottawa. Like I don't know about game stacking here. I guess you can. It's a short slate. So yeah, I just don't want to play the line going into McDavid.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to do this because it had been Taves, Radish, and Khrushchev taking some top line minutes, taking top line matchups, and then that Dickinson, Blackwell, Kyra line was also taking some top line minutes. So it's basically Chicago's second and third lines they're using against opposing top lines. I'm thinking that they put Taves and Kane together to keep them away from McDavid. Like I can't imagine you're going to put your only decent offensive line out against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in the hopes of winning that game. I think they put them together so that basically whenever McDavid and Draisaitl aren't on the ice, Taves and Kane are.
Especially
I think
Anthony Ciu there, who's absolutely poopers defensively.
I would think that it would be Phil Khrushchev on the wing if they were actually. Now, they still might. We don't know how this is going to work out because these are line combinations they haven't had all season. But I'm still assuming you're going to see probably mostly the Kyra Dickinson Blackwell line going out against McDavid and Draisaitl. And like they haven't been awful defensively, 2.2 expected goals against. It's that they just don't generate anything offensively. So they're well below water by expected goal share. And they run the risk of, just not creating anything in the offensive zone and McDavid and Draisaitl just racing back the other way constantly. So assuming Chicago's going to that, I think this is a great spot for the Edmonton top line. Like I haven't been super high on Edmonton for a few weeks now because they're really doing nothing at 5-on-5, but it is just really a good power play matchup here. Chicago 3.5 times shorthanded per game. That's above league average. Edmonton's drawing 3.61 power plays per game. Again, above league average. The Chicago penalty kill has been getting worse since the start of the season. Part of it's driven by the goaltending, so maybe Arvid Soderblom can kind of save them here tonight, but I don't really think so. I just think it's a pretty good spot for that Edmonton power play unit. And with the injuries that Edmonton has and with the depth not really doing so well, like we've seen McDavid and Draisaitl play like 25, 26 minutes in recent games. So I think I'm just figuring out a way to put in the expensive Oilers guys and then seeing what I can do with the rest of my lineup. I agree with you. You don't have to really pay attention to second and third lines. If you want a one-off Matthias Janmark for super cheap or something like that, like I think you can. I don't think you really need to. On the Chicago side, the top line for the Blackhawks is interesting to me. Like the projection for the top line of the Blackhawks is higher than the projection for the top line of the Detroit, and their implied goal total is 0.8 goals lower. It's because they're expecting that if the Blackhawks are going to score, it's definitely from the top 6, probably from the top line. And as for as good a power play spot it is for Edmonton, Chicago's the Oilers are at 3.9 times shorthanded per game this season, amongst the most in the league, and their penalty kill has been just as bad as Chicago's. So, I think the Chicago top line is fine to play here tonight. I don't expect a whole lot from them, but the ownership's fine. The price is fine. You can fit them in with Toronto top line if that's the way you want to go, or Ottawa top line, or Buffalo top line, or whatever. So I think Chicago one's fine here. I probably wouldn't dip down to the second line. It's playable because Domi and Radish are probably going to be on the power play again. It is a good power play spot. So if you want a two-man Domi and Radish or something, I think that's acceptable. But I don't mind Chicago 1 here going into what's going to be some pretty bad depth from Edmonton. But it is about the big Edmonton guys here. I think that's the story of the slate, actually.
Yeah. And if you are fading Connor McDavid tonight, fasten your seatbelt, put on a helmet, do what you need to do. You're in for a ride. Haven't decided what I'm doing yet, but I think I have an idea. On the blue line, Tyson Barrie running the top power play unit at 3,900. He's kind of fine at 3,900.
Yeah.
So I think Seth Jones is a good play too at 6,300. Like, he's probably about as expensive as I go tonight for a defenseman. I think he's good. Connor Murphy, Jake McCabe might block 4,000 shots combined tonight. Maybe. But they are over 4K, so bit iffy. Cody Ceci, I guess, is all right. Darnell Nurse, 4,400. Evan Bouchard, if he played more than 12 minutes, I would probably put him in my lineup, but he probably won't.
That's the problem. Bouchard's shooting a lot lately. 7 shots the other night, but he did it in like 14 minutes. You can't rely on that every single night. So I do like Darnell Nurse's price again. I know he's going to be highly owned, but I really like that price again. I think he's perfectly playable here. I agree with you on CC. I'll just mention Jack Johnson. Like, I know it's kind of funny to think about, but he's probably going to be like second or third in ice time amongst the Chicago defensemen. Probably will have to put up a lot of blocks here tonight if Chicago wants to win this game.
Coming up after us, we have the No House Advantage Wednesday night NBA show at 3:30 with Terry and Gundacker. Then we have the NBA Deeper Dive at 4:45 with Greg and Adam, so make sure to stay tuned for that. I have an idea who you're going to like in that here. Samsonov is the obvious play. Anyone else you liking?
I mean, nobody that like I'm running out to play. I do think Stuart Skinner's fine. He's just a little bit expensive. I honestly don't hate Craig Anderson tonight. I can't believe I'm saying that. He's not projecting well, but he is relatively cheap. He's played well this year. He's been Buffalo's best goalie, which I know isn't saying much, but has been their best goalie. It is just a landmine. I think I might just choke the chalk down with Samsonov. We'll see how my line of construction builds go, but like other than that, probably Soderblom or Skinner, someone in that game.
Yeah, Samsonov, the obvious guy. Like, the goalies in the Rangers Senators game, if you want to strap yourself to a rocket and cry for 3 hours, go for it. I do agree with Craig Anderson. I also don't mind Nedeljkovic. Like, Stu Skinner, if you're paying up, is fine. Same with like Arvid Soder. I think, like, honestly, the only goalie that I probably won't give strong thought to is Aaron Dell.
Aaron Dell, yeah.
Why go to Aaron Dell when you can just play the minus 300 favorite in Samsonov? But like, yeah, I'll consider Halak and Talbot. I just, that's my least favorite game to pick a goalie from. We'll just say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Hat trick pick. This could be spicy.
Yeah, it could be a little bit spicy considering the lines that I do like playing tonight. I'm going to go somebody that you might not think of as a Hattie contender, but I hope he does it, Tim Stützle.
I like that pick. I had a feeling we were going to hear a Senator here. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't want to give away like obvious picks here. I want some spicy meatballs. Going to go David Perron.
I like it.
A little power play action. Yeah, after we just talked up Craig Anderson, we picked David Perron for the hat trick. Go us. I appreciate all y'all joining in, especially for that little strategy talk at the beginning. We will be back tomorrow. I think it's a little bit bigger slate. We'll be in premium Discord. We'll be on Twitter. BetMGM. Sign up. What are you waiting for? We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.